everyone joined? 3 people on already. Hello everybody. I've tilted my camera at a different angle today, so I'm going to have to lean right down to say hello to you. And star of the show today is Flower the Giraffe. So we've got 4 people, 5 people on. Oh, there's a knock at the door. Hello Heather, hi, nice to have you along today. Not such a lovely day today, is it? Bright but cold, very windy. Sue, hiya Sue, good to have you along today. Excellent, 7 on now, we're growing, our audience is growing. Whilst I've been waiting for you all to join, I've just been playing with a little hair. I've gone very girly, very pinks and purples. What do you think? Do you like her? She's cute, isn't she? Okay, 8 people on. Gemma, hello Gemma Churchill, you're here too. Brilliant, okay. Well, as it's a Saturday, I thought we'd keep it light. We did quite a long session yesterday doing pastels, my pastel view. So today we're going back to having a bit more fun with some watercolour and one of my characters. Now there's a bit of a shadow here and I'm not quite sure why that's happening. But the main bit is in focus. I don't know. I've got a backlight on, but it is giving us some shadow. I'm just going to turn it off and see if it's any better. No, it's still there. Maybe it's the camera that's causing it. Okay, so we've got 8 people on. Let's make a start, shall we? So all you're going to see today is my hands, and every now and again I'll pop down to have a look. Just going to see if I can get any messages you're typing come up on my other screen, because I'm going to struggle to see that one. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this. I think I have to follow along. I don't know. I'll just keep looking at the screen now and again if you ask questions. So this is Flower the Giraffe, very colourful beastie, brilliant for children's rooms or just adults that like animals really. So she's one of many in my collection. And here she is on a mug, look. So all of my creatures I put onto everyday items, so mugs, cushions. So if you're interested in any of that, you can pop over to my website and have a look. Pics blurry. Is it? Anyone else think it's blurry? I've not had this before. Oh, it's okay now. Okay, good. Oh, I've dropped my pencil. Okay, I'm back. It's okay. Hello Jack, how are you? Thank you for booking on one of my classes, one of the Zoom classes. Right, okay, so first tip of the day. We're going to be working in watercolours today. I prefer to work in watercolour pans. Here's a little set by Winsor & Newton. So it's just 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 colours in there, although I don't use the white, so we'll ignore that. So I'm just using this little set, but you can obviously also use watercolour. Let me just move my little hair out of the way. You can use watercolour in tubes as well. It's really whatever you're more comfortable with, or whatever you happen to have at home really. Hey Becky! The only colour that I've cheated with today, because there's a little bit of pink in Flower's ear, I've squeezed a bit of rose into my palette. So I have this palette just where I want to mix colours generally. So I've been mixing some purple, and here's the rose that I'm going to use for a tiny bit in her ear. They are exactly the same paints, whether you use a tube or you use a pan. If you squeeze this out and leave it to dry, it becomes that. So, you know, there's no right or wrong, better or worse. Just depends on what you find more comfortable. And to be honest, with the pans, if you want to go outside and paint, they're really portable. So I tend to use those for most of my work. The brushes I'm using today are just 2 round brushes, 2 watercolour synthetic brushes. So I've got a size 10. And I can't see the size on this, and a smaller one. A 10 and a baby. Okay, I've got a pencil, and I've got some fine liner pens. So I've just got two here, two different brands to show you. So there's Unipin, which I use the most, but you can also get them by Staedtler. And what you're really looking for is waterproof pens, water resistant, rather than any old felt tip pen, because once you get it wet, it will leak, and you don't want any ink leaking over your work. Okay, I've got 2 cups of water to wash my brushes and 1 cup to put fresh water down on my paints when I'm mixing them. So the first thing that you want to do, you can either freehand draw the image that you want to paint, or like I've done, I've taken my 2B pencil, you can use a HB but it doesn't come out, and scribbled over the back of the printout. So ordinary printer paper, I've printed out Flower the Giraffe, scribbled over the back, give it a nice coating of lead, place it on your watercolour paper, and then just draw over the key lines that you want to come down. It's a lot quicker than using normal tracing paper, because with that you're drawing once, drawing twice, drawing 3 times, whereas this it's pretty much scribble and go. Yeah, and then you can use it again, you know. So that's my tip for today. Scribble over there. Okay, one other thing before I get started on Flower, and she won't stay still, she's sliding all over the place. Stay there, stay, thank you. Okay, is your paper. So I've got watercolour paper. It's £140 cold pressed watercolour paper, which means it has a texture to it. So this is the one I'm using. My the dog's barking just now was my new delivery of a webcam. So next week, hopefully when I'm filming, you'll see everything the right way round, whereas you're seeing me as a right-handed artist at the moment. I'm actually left-handed, guys. So this one is called Zieler, Z-I-E-L-E-R. It's a 50-page pad, so it'll keep you going for weeks, which we'll probably need right now. And it was around £15. Really, really good value. Okay. The other one that I use generally before I found that one was Daleroni. Same weight, £140. This is a hot pressed, a smooth one, which I couldn't find the other day. Now I found it when I don't need it. But cold pressed I prefer for this work. I like the bumps and lumps on the paper. Okay, so once you have sketched down your animal, you're going to work adding these lovely colours to the work. And before I do that, I'm going to slide my board over so it's a bit closer to the camera. I'm going to do some little techniques that will help you with all of your watercolour works. How many people we got on now? 9. Excellent, 9 of you. Okay, so some watercolour techniques. Oops, Messenger Teresa. Which soft pastels do you recommend? I'll answer her in a while. Okay, now then. With watercolour, I mentioned we don't use the white. I don't use white. I'm a purist watercolour artist. So any of the highlights or white should come from the paper that you're working on, okay? Do not add white to the colours to get them lighter. What will happen? Anyone know? I can't wait for answers, so I'll tell you. If you add white, you can see my one's still in its wrapper, to any other colour, instead of being beautiful and translucent, the paint becomes opaque. It becomes like an acrylic paint, and you lose the vibrancy of the watercolours, that transparent, glossy, glassy look as soon as any white touches the colour. So don't unwrap your white, or if it's in another tin, just ignore it. Do not use white. So what do we do if we want a different colour, a shade of colour? So just a little exercise that you should do is take your mixing palette, or just use the lid, just if you've got a lid, or a plate. A plate from your kitchen cupboard will do. And I'm gonna put some water just with my brush, some clean water. Bring that there into one of the cells, one of the mixing holes on the palette, and I'm going to work with this blue. So I'm going to take a tiny bit of blue just on the tip of my brush, wet brush, and just drop that blue into the water. Give it a mix around, and this will be my lightest shade. Just paint that down. Can you see that, guys? Nice and glassy and light. Oops. Okay, now you could mix several wells of water so you get a different grade of each colour, but I'm just going to show you in this one puddle, as I call it. So I'm going to pick up another bit of the blue and drop into my puddle and paint that down. So we don't need white. The way you control the strength of the colour is by the amount of water that you're putting in your paint, you're adding to your paint. Now my table's on a bit of a slant today, so all of these are running to the bottom. But you can see each time I add more pigment to that water puddle, the colour gets stronger as there's more pigment to water. It's just the ratio. We're getting stronger. Just keep going, adding a bit more each time. You don't want to add any more water to it though, otherwise you're defeating the object. Okay, and you'll get your little colour swatch going from light to dark. So if you want to use light colours, in Flower, in her face over here, she's got a very light blue. So there I'll just use more water and more diluted paint to get those lighter colours. But actually for most of our beastie today, she's quite dark. Okay. The other thing I want to show you is a technique called wet in wet. Okay, now wet in wet is just allowing your colours to mix together on the surface of the paper. So you can mix your colours together. So I made purple earlier with red and blue, but it's even more fun to let the colours mix on the paper. That shadow seems to be getting worse. I don't understand where it's coming from. Do not understand. Anyway, I'll try and keep my board up in the light area so you can see better. Okay, right. So wet in wet then, a quick wet in wet exercise. I'm just going to take some clean water and put a square down here, just of water, so you're not going to see anything. It doesn't make for good visual entertainment. Okay. And I'm going to take the bright yellow. Let me move my paints down so you can see them. So I'm just going to take the yellow and I'm going to drop just the tip of my brush into the water that I've put on the paper. You want a nice wet brush loaded with paint and just drop it in the water. And what will happen, what you'll see happen, and I really want you to try this, so wet your paper nice and glassy. That colour's probably not best again for camera, so I'm going to go into this lovely blue I've got here. And I'm going to drop it again. And you should see the colour spread out. Can you see that spreading? I'll do it again. Touch the brush down. And that mark, that ink blob, it's like an ink blob, just spreads out in the water. Just keep touching it down. Your brush needs to be nice and wet, as well as the paper surface that you're working on. Now I'm just going to tilt that around. Oh, they've got more wet space up here. Let me put some more down. Bigger one so you can see. Bigger splotch. Can you see that? It's like a firework bursting out into the water. The paint obviously reacts. It's watercolour paint, so as it says on the tin, it needs water to react. There we go. Now I've just dotted some more yellow amongst that, and look at those starbursts. Look where the green's coming from. Just where I'm allowing and tilting the page. Look, I'm going to tilt it over and let it run. Let it run. And you can see that third colour being created from the two you've mixed just by putting those blobs on the page. I think the shadow is coming from you. It's not. No, look, I lean right back and it's not I'm really perplexed to where it's coming from, because as I'm looking at it, there's no shadow. It's very odd. It's very odd. Hi, Linda. I've not had this shadow problem before. So, yeah. Maybe it's because I've got the camera closer. Probably it's the camera. I'm just going to take it up a little. I do not know. Is that any better? Oh, technical issues. I've got my webcam later. Be fun. Okay, let's carry on. Hopefully you can see, and I'll try and keep my work up here so you can see it. Okay, right, so that's Wet in Wet. And I'm going to use Wet in Wet mainly in most of the work that I'm going to do in Flower's face, okay? So, you've traced down your image. Actually, there was something else I wanted to show you before that. Where's my little notes? Control. So we're not using white, and we're keeping the white of the paper as our highlights, any area. And you don't want Flower to be completely filled in. You want these white areas to show through, particularly around her nose, highlights around above her eyes and down her neck. So what you must do to prevent that happening is keep your paper dry. Now I'm going to tip this up, this blob. Let me see, let me get that in the camera. And I'll tilt it to the light. Can you see I've got a bubble of paint at the bottom where I'm holding it up? So gravity is pulling it down, but because the paper where it's meeting is dry, the paint won't go any further. Sorry, I was just looking at a question Becky's just asked. Do you need to pencil in all the details? It's up to you really, Becky. For this one, I wouldn't be penciling in all the splodges, because that's just going to come from whatever colours you want to put down. So I would do, like I've done here, maybe if I ink over some of this, I've just got the outline, really. The eyes are key, the nostrils. Just get those main lines that you see in the drawing, okay? Just to give you the guide where things are. You get the eyes in the right place, etc. So this shadow is so distracting. Okay, so normally when I'm doing these, I start with my watercolour and then I do the ink afterwards. But today, because we're doing this on camera, I think it'll be easier for you to see if I just ink in some of these lines first. So I'm just taking my this is a 0.8 fine line actually. Normally I'd use a 0.5, but I got the wrong one out. What can I say? I'm being careful when I'm sketching not to do everything as a solid line. Around the ears I've broken the line. Okay, some areas will be solid line, like this side of her eye. But where she's got fluffy ears, I don't want that ink line to be too solid. So you can just sketch around. I'll just very quickly get this in so we can move on to the paint. So talk amongst yourselves whilst I quickly sketch our beautiful girl in so she can come into shot. So what are you guys all up to today? Are you going to be painting this afterwards? Is anyone painting along? Okay, so I've done the same thing this side. I've just broken up that line. I'm just looking to see if anyone's up right onto the eyes. Now I suggest for you, particularly if you're not used to watercolour painting, when you come to do her eyes, you may want to do them all in ink, where you've got a bit more control rather than the water. Get her lovely eyelashes in and her top eyelid. Okay, down her face. She's one of my most popular watercolours. She sells all the time on mugs and some cushions. They look great. Great big cushions for children's rooms. So they've been really popular. So it's not every day that people want to buy art to hang on their wall. but they will buy a nice mug for the office, or, you know, to have their morning cuppa. Just go round the nostril, nice nose in, and then we're pretty much there. Was that my webcam arriving?
It's arrived, yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Well,
oh yeah.
what do you want it?
Thank you. Look at this service, guys. I've got a cup of tea brought to me.
Yeah, don't get used to it.
Okay, I think that's most of the lines, so you can see her a lot better now. Yeah? You can see her. I'm trying to paint with you. Oh, well done, Jackie. Sandra, I'm painting along today. Yay! You're all painting along. I love it. Okay, use your own colours on this beastie if you want to. Just have some fun with colour. She's pretty much got all the colours of the rainbow going on. And look, I've got my tea in my otter mug. I love my otter. Okay. Right. Now, with watercolour, I suggest you start with the lighter colours going through to dark. I'm just going to try the curtains a sec, guys. Just bear with me. Just to see if that's making any difference to this damn shadow. Okay. I've got to forget about the shadow and just go for it. Now, remember, guys, I said that to control where your paint's going is if the paper is wet or dry. So I'm going to work in little segments at a time because I want to mix the colours and I want the paper to be damp so that the colours will bleed together. I don't want them to sit a solid yellow, a solid blue. I want the blue to bleed into the yellow to create a greeny hue. And actually, I want some of this paint to come over the lines as well. I'm not sticking within the lines. I'm letting it just run and bleed and play on the... So I'm going to wet this ear. I'll start from the left. Just wet down. And actually, I'm going to wet outside the line to encourage that the paint to bleed. I'm a devil, aren't I? Okay, I'm picking up my yellow and I'm going very strong, so I'm not putting it in a well and going for a light colour and adding water. I'm going straight from the pan itself. Let me bring that back into shot. Straight from the pan. So I do want a nice wet brush, and I'm just going to tap this yellow in around the tip of her ear here. I love doing these, they're so cheerful. Now, which blue do I want? I want this greeny blue. I've got two blues in this palette. One's a bit greeny, you can see that. Well, not greeny, but it's this one, as you can see. Can you see that? Is a dark blue, and this one's got more of a... Yeah, it has got a bit of yellow in it, so it's got a bit of a azure blue. Okay, so I'm just going to come in and tap with just the tip. So I'm not painting in the old-fashioned sense, painting backwards and forwards. I'm using the brush to tease and place the paint. Now, if you don't want the paint to bleed too much, you just wait until the paper started to dry back a little bit. Okay? If you want it to bleed more, work wet in wet, very wet in wet. The wetter the paper, the more activity will happen with the paint. Okay, I'm just going to put a bit more yellow in here, and I'm going to push my yellow into the blue because I really want that green transition to happen. Just teasing it with the end of my brush. Another thing for you guys is when you're teasing it with your brush, to get more of a reaction, maybe drop a little tiny bit more water on from your brush. Don't have a dry brush or just a damp brush, because I'll show you what will happen. If you use your brush dry, if I show you over here on this blob that we did, that's still wet, the brush will suck up the paint and it will lift out, which is another technique which is really useful. But don't go in with just a dry brush, because it will lift out the paint. It will just suck it up like a sponge. and then you'll have a patch. Oh look, we've got a run. Yay! I've got a run. Okay, now I'm going to go into some purple. Now you could mix your purple. There's someone else at the door today. What's going on? Entertaining my dogs. This is the purple that I mixed earlier. I just used my crimson red, which is the more pinky red. I've got two reds in this set, a brick red and a crimson red, in with this dark blue to create my purple. You can see it's a lovely shade of purple. And just go a bit stronger along the edge of her ear here. And obviously the purple's going to mix with the blue, so we're getting all sorts going on. Just a bit stronger in the ear. Now, the edge of her ear, I want to be red, and I don't want it to bleed into what I've done so far. So for that, I'm going to wait until this area has dried. So if you want areas to stay in isolation, don't work on them areas that are next to each other, because it will follow. The watercolour paint will follow wherever there's water adjacent to it. Okay? So if you want an area to stay as a block colour, wait for the work that you've done to dry and move on to a different area and come back to it. I'm just going to take a bit more of my purple and drop into this edge of the ear. I've waited a little while for it to dry out a little and drop a stronger colour down in the inside bit of her ear, because that would be in shade. I've nearly lost all my yellow over here, but I'm just going to let it do what it wants to do today. So I'll bring a little bit more yellow in here. Oh, I don't like that. There we are. Okay, so I'm going to move to her other ear and let this one dry. And the same process. I'm going to wet this ear, the inside bit. I'm going to leave the outside bit again. You know, when you're putting the water down, you want your paper to be shiny, but you don't want a puddle. So you want to shine to the paper, but not a puddle. And start with your lightest colour again. So I'm going to drop some of this lovely bright lemon yellow along the edge of her ear. I don't like what's happened here. It's bled too much. So I'm going to use my tissue, because I held it up. Use a bit of tissue to soak up the paint. You can either use your brush or a bit of kitchen towel. Just bled a little bit too much. I like it to go over the lines, but that was just a little too much. Okay, so back over to this one with my lovely blue and drop that in next to the yellow. I'm just going next to it, and the edge of the brush is just touching into the yellow. So I get a bleed and a change of colour along that line. Now obviously my table is slightly tilted, so the blue is running down. So I'm being careful that it doesn't run too far. And then just go in with my purple and dabbing it in along that line. Really strong colour. I've got a lot of pigment on this time. I'm going to bring that strong colour back over here. This ear has started to dry out. It's drying back, but I just want that stronger colour. Just pull in. Another technique is called pull in. So I've put a strong colour down here, and I want to encourage it to blend out. And the paper's dried back. It's still damp, but it's dried back a bit. So I'm just pulling it and letting it come through. Hey, we've got two ears. Excellent. Okay, it's fun, isn't it? You can have so much fun with watercolour. It's just getting that control. Look what's happening over here. I might tilt my table a bit less. Try and stop this happening. It's too much of a tilt. It's quite nice though. Can you see those colours in that ear? Really pretty. I did want a bit more yellow, but this is probably going to be Flower's boyfriend. So we'll have to find a name for this guy. It's definitely going to be a boy. Okay, so I'm going to leave those areas to dry. I'm not going to go back to the top of the ears, and I'm going to start coming down the face and the antlers. So I'm going to, where do I want to go next? I'm going to put clean water. Now, I'm putting clean water over this section of his face, going right up to his eye, but where I've left these white areas, I want to try and keep my paper dry so that the paint doesn't fill his whole face, okay? So you have to have good eyesight to see where this water is, where you've put it. I'm going back into my lovely bright yellow and just using the tip of the brush again to drop this in, bring it along down by her eye, his eye. It's a boy, I keep forgetting. Down here, down the nose, and up that middle section of her face. His face, my God. I'm so used to it being a girl. I don't think I can transition it to be, I'm going to put a splosh of yellow there. There we go. So we've got a nice bright yellow down. Hard getting the purple, Heather. You want a true blue. You don't want a blue with any green in it. And you want the crimson red. More red than blue. Just let me do it here. So I'll start another well in my palette. I'm going to put the crimson first. Crimson in first. Just drop some dollops of that paint in. When you're mixing colours, and I really recommend you spend some time mixing different colours, you only have to put the tiniest fragment of paint to see that puddle change colour. You think you're not putting much in, so I'm going to go with this true blue and drop the tiniest bit of blue in. Tiniest bit of blue. Let's paint this down and see what I've got. So we're starting to go a bit purpley. I need a bit more. So I'm going to pick up a tiny bit and drop it into the puddle. Mix it in. Now let's see what we've got. That's getting closer to it. Now I've got quite a lot of water in my puddle. I'm going to bring this over. So you can see that tiny bit of blue has taken it from this pinky red to this. So I need another little bit of blue. And now, see how it's changed. And you see how that has changed from this one to this one to this one. So it is about playing around and being really careful with how much purple you're putting in. Karina, hi Karina, you're doing your own thing. Excellent. Are you doing a giraffe though, Karina, or are you just using your own colours? So I'm going to go back to this head now. I want some orange coming through into this yellow, so I'm going to take up a tiny bit of my pure red, my brick postbox red, and I'm going to drop that into the yellow. I want this just to mix nice and freely on the paper to create this orange. You could mix it in your little cell first if you're more comfortable doing that. You got it, Heather. Excellent. Good. Well done. It's persistence, but it really is about getting used to how little paint you need in that puddle to make it change colour. So I've just dropped my red in and I'm getting a lovely orange coming through. So I've just taken my lightest yellow and dropped some of this red into it, wet in wet on the paper. Now I'm going to do the same thing to create the green. I'm going to go with my true blue and drop some of that in the yellow. A bit more yellow over the top. So you can carry on teasing it and playing with it to get the colour you want. There we go. I think I should have used the other blue. So, all is not lost. People say you can't fix things in watercolour, but if you're quick, you can lift the colour out. You will not get back to white paper. It will always have a bit of a stain to it. So I'm going to do that section again. Water, yellow, and the other blue. The blue with a bit of yellow in it. I like the colour that that produces. There we go. Just pulling and playing with that colour. And then over this side of the face, I want a stronger blue. Karina, I like you. She's 7. Who's 7? Karina? Who's 7? I must have missed the comment that went before. Okay, so I'm going to take my darker blue and bring it in up this side of the face. I don't mind if it mixes with this yellow. I'm quite happy to just lay that in. What happens, happens. I'm going to take it up to the tip of the horn over this side and a bit on this side. I'm trying to stay quite true to the colours I used a zillion years ago when I first painted this one. There we go. Just dropping that in and allowing the paint to react with the other colours that are on the paper. That way you'll get a nice soft. Okay, round the eye here, I'm just taking my blue. But the paper's dry the other side. I've left white paper this side. So where I've taken the blue round that eye socket, the paint isn't going to go anywhere. It's not going to travel. And I'm just going to bring that down around the eye this side too. And then some pink. I want some pink. I'm going to bring some pink over this side. Just tapping it in, guys. Just letting it play on the paper. Letting it mix. Now, are we ready for this ear? Yes. We're ready. Rosie is 7. Ah. Rosie would be a good name for one of my characters. I might have to steal your name, Rosie, for one of my animals. What do you think? I'm just dropping a bit of yellow here. I want this bleeding to happen round the ear so it matches the other side. Okay, I'm going up that antler now. And I'm just going to add some of that brick red. Because I've got yellow and orange, and I think the brick red will look nicer than the pinky red. Just take that in. Drop it around this horn. I want that colour stronger. Remember, if you want your colour stronger, you're using it more neat. So I'm just going straight into the paint pans and dabbing that in. Now my orange area is dried out a little bit, so I'm just going to add a bit more yellow there, a bit more water, and let those two colours bleed together. So we've got our yellows going into this red, giving us a nice transition. Yay! She's coming to life. Oh. Just going to mix this blue in down the face. There we go. So where do I go next? I'm going to finish this horn and then we're going to go back to the ear. So I'm going to take this, the greeny blue. I want it light, quite light, so I'm adding some water to it to lighten it. And this, the tip of this antler, you can see the difference in those blues now. Now they're next to each other. One's very, I like this blue. Just drop a bit more of this lighter blue around where I want it. Okay, it's a bit of a splodgy mess, isn't it? Right, I'm going to go up the ears. So I'm going back to this ear because now this is dried and it's not going to leak. So I want a nice strong red. I'm just taking a wet brush to my paint pan and painting this red in. So this is more painterly style rather than dropping it in, because the paper's dry. And just painting that along the edge of the ear. Wow, doesn't that make a difference? And then this side, I'm gonna keep in red both sides, unlike the one I did before. Just going to bring that red around the top of the ear. There we go. Take it to the tip. There, now he's starting to take shape. Okay, I've had a bit of a bleed go on here. My colours are sort of merged together a bit too much, so I'm going to take my yellow back, just add that strong yellow back in. I want that colour to pop, and then a bit more of the red. Bring my orange back. There we go. So I'm just going to carry on down the face now. Under this eye, I'm going to go down the left side. Remember your lighter colours first. So I want to get this light blue in. Going to come up to where we left off there. I don't mind if it bleeds around the eye. And bring this light blue down the cheeks. There we go. And then under the eye, I'm going to take the darker blue, the true blue, and drop that in. Just under the eye. Remember, it's going to bleed a little bit into that paint, but I don't mind that. That's what I want to happen. And then I'm taking this red again I used up on his ear, up here. And I'm going to bring some red splodges down his cheek. And let it mix with that blue. Down the side of his mouth. I'm just going onto the dry paper here. And where the paint meets the blue, it will act like a wet in wet and bleed in. Okay, up the nostril and under the eye. These are just fun, aren't they? Just having fun with all these beautiful colours. You want to be an artist, Rosie? Ah, I'm sure if you practice you will be. If you really want to be. Just paint something every day. Practice, practice, practice. That's what you need to do. Okay, now I'm going to take some more of this blue. I'll have it a little bit stronger this time than I used on that side. But it's this greeny blue. Come under the eye. Down this side. Aren't these fun? Seriously, such fun. And then the red. I'm going to come below that blue because I want this bit of red to be quite solid against the dry paper. So wet on dry round this cheek. The reason I've switched to wet on dry is around this side I want quite a lot of white to still show through from the paper. Okay, so that's why my technique's changed around here. I don't want it to bleed to get too much. I want it to sit there quite solid. I'm going to take some more yellow round this nostril. And here I'm going to let it touch into the red and touch into the blue. There we go. And drop a little bit of red in that yellow and make it more orangey. Oh, my phone's busy today. It keeps binging and dinging. There we go. You know what really looks good in this is doing a giraffe. Another way you could do it, that I want to do actually, is just do lots of colours wet in wet all over the page with no particular outline, no shape, just a plain blank paper, and do all these colours. And then use Indian ink to draw the giraffe so the colours come through the stripes. I think that would be pretty cool. Okay, so we're nearly done here. So I'm just going to bring this yellow. This time I want to wet the face first because I want this to bleed together. So it just depends whether you want the colours to react together or you want to put them down neat. I'm just going to bring this yellow in the nose. I'm going to add some blue in here. Now I've got a little bleed going on over here because I didn't let the side of the face dry. So, where's the camera? So I've got a tiny little bleed with the red coming into the yellow. But it's not too bad, I can live with that. So I should have waited a bit longer for that side of the face to dry. And I'm going to take that lovely blue I've been using, drop that into the yellow, a bit more yellow, want it more light green, just drag that around the mouth. There we go. I'm going to speed up a bit now, guys. Your teacher is an artist. Ah, that's good. It's good to have a teacher as an artist. I remember my teacher when I was at school, Mrs. Barnes. She was my inspiration. So I'm just laying lots of yellow down his neck. It's quite wet. I'm just going to move that around with the tip of my brush. And then take some of this lovely blue, drop that in, Look how it's mixing. Can you see how it's wet on wet? It's just bleeding into that neck, giving that soft and a different colour being created. I do have another bleed because I'm rushing. And just soak that up with the tip of my brush. See how important it is to let the sections dry and not get carried away, because you have these bleeds I've just had there with the red on the face was still wet. Okay, so let's carry on with these splodges. I'm going to drop some red down here. This red's dry, I'm not worried about that. Just wherever you want the patterns to be. Just have fun with it, guys. Seriously, I can't wait for you to share. You better be sharing today. I've not had many people sharing their artwork lately. So either you've not got time to do it, or you're not doing any, and you're just watching me. So I want to see your giraffes. Miss Welton. Ah. Sounds like she's made an impact on you, Rosie. Miss Welton. That's good. When you go back to school, you'll be able to show her all the work you've been doing while she's been at home. Okay, just going to bring more blue down the side of the neck. Lovely. I'm having this side of the neck quite coloured in. This side I'm leaving some white paper to come through. Let's have some pink. Bit of pink go on down here. I wish I put a bit more pink up here now. Never mind. That's nice. Fun, fun, fun. Art should be fun. There we go. Stronger down the neck. Hi Eunice, sorry to join you towards the end of your demo. Looking forward to watching the full video and having a go. Yay! Hiya Andrea. Do you really want to see mine? Yes, Sue, I really want to see them all. Okay, now this is where you can go and tweak bits and pieces. I love just happy accidents that happen. You might not like it, but I do. This side of the face, I love what's happened with this pale blue and the red, the orangey red. Just where it's bled. I'll bring it a bit closer. Can you see what's gone on there? These colours are still moving. Some of them are still wet. So we just need to give her some eyes. Give him some eyes and a shadow under the mouth. So I'm going to go back to my purple. The mouth, is it dry? This is important. No, the mouth isn't dry. So whilst that's drying, I'm going to go to the eyes with my pen now, with my ink pen. You can do it with your paint if you want to, if you're feeling brave. But as I say, the pen will give you a bit more control. I haven't drunk any of my tea. It's going to be stone cold again. You want to leave a bit of light in the eye. So I'm coming up under the eyelid with the ball of the eye. Just colouring it in black and leaving a highlight. There we go. And leaving a bit of white around the edge. And then I'm going to strengthen up these eyelashes. Woo! Just flicking. Drawing some lovely eyelashes through. And the other side. I just need to turn my page, guys, because I don't want to put my hand in the wet paint. So the same thing, I'm just going to bring this eyeball in. Comes out the side. Their eyes are so wide apart on their face. They're like a cow. Cows' eyes are really wide apart on their face. There we go. And bring some eyelashes. I wish I had eyelashes like this giraffe. I tell you, I've got stumpy little eyelashes. And suddenly she's come into life. He's come into life. Now I'm also going to strengthen the ink marks. I only put the ink down at the beginning so you could see what I was doing. Make sure your work is dry when you do this. And you can check if it's dry by holding it up to the light, see if it's got a shine. Or use the back of your hand just to check whether it's dry enough. Just going to bring some more details through with my ink pen. And this is where it all comes to life. Down the side of the face. Really strengthening those lines. Up those lovely antlers. I'm really liking the colours of this one. Right, is that mouth dry? No, it's still wet. I might have to get the hairdryer out. You're calling yours Sugar. Oh, that's a really nice name. I'm just going to drop a bit of purple on these eyelids whilst I'm waiting. I'm just going back and tweaking where I want stronger colour. I'm just going to move to my smaller brush. I'm going to take some of that brick red and strengthen the red up here. Add a bit more red to the antler here. So the good thing with watercolour is when you go over, when the paint is dry, you can increase the intensity by adding another layer of paint. So rather than working wet in wet, you've got a bit more control, and because watercolour is transparent, you can see one colour through the other. You're just building up a glaze of a stronger colour. It's called glazing. Just going to drop this stronger red over here. It will also give you the illusion, here I've taken the red over the blue, and it will give that optical illusion of a purple. So glazing will help bring your work to life, strengthening that colour. Watercolour dries back lighter than when you put it on. I want to strengthen this red down the side of the face here, really make it pop. Just see where you want to add a bit more strength of colour. And then coming down the neck, under here. I'm not going to do too much more to this beautiful beastie. A bit more yellow down this section because I want that a bit more green. There we go. What do you think? Do you like her? Him? Do you like him? I've still got to do the shadow under the mouth. So for speed, I'm just going to dab that bit of wet paint that was still being persistently sitting there. I'm going to go into my purple to bring a shadow colour and just tap them, just tap in a tiny shadow under this, under his nose. Yeah, just tap in under the nose. I'm going to add a bit of red to that. I want it darker. There we go. Just think about when you're using your watercolours, what colours work well together. If they're going to hit each other, are they going to create a nice colour or a horrible colour? So, colours that don't work together. Orange and purple, yuck. When they mix together, you get a horrible muddy brown. Blue and brown will make you a grey. So if you want a grey, then use blue and brown to mix that. But don't put colours together that are going to bleed wet in wet that make mud. You don't want mud. Okay, I'm just going to add a bit more strength under this eye with that blue that I used. So I'm just looking over the work and just seeing where I want to tweak and intensify the colour. Bit stronger there. I'm going to keep that side light. I'm quite happy with that. So nostrils, just need to bring the dark of his nostrils in. So I'm going back to my ink pen again for that. Don't use your ink pen if the paper's wet, remember that, because until it's dry, it's water soluble, this ink, but only when it's dry, when it's dried into the paper. There we are, I've got some nostrils. What do you think? There's only 7 left. Oh, people, don't go. I've got the funnest bit to do. You're going to like this, Rosie. Now, I'm taking a very wet brush and I'm going to do the splatters. Love this bit. So, choose what colour you want to splatter your work. I'm going to take this lovely blue. Nice wet brush. I'm going to hold my pen, my brush, level over the top of the painting, and then I'm just going to give it a tap, gentle tap, to get some splatters. If some of them go over my animal, I don't mind. If you look closely at my original, there's lots of splatters going on around the neck, around the face. So I've got some blue splatters, and I'm going to do some yellow splatters. Nice and wet brush. Load it up with lots of paint. Lots of paint. Hold it parallel to the paper and give it a tap. Just give it a tap to get the splatters you want. There we go. There we have a giraffe. I'll send her to your house for the splatters. Oh dear. Try. Just don't have an ink pen. Well, you could use a felt tip pen, but just make sure your painting's dry, Becky. Felt tip pen. You could even just use black paint, but you want the lines to be quite thin, so be careful if you're going to paint them in. Yeah, just be careful. Felt tip pen, marker pen, but make sure your painting's dry. I'm just going to move the camera back up so I can see you all. Well, I can't see you all, just to talk to you before I go. So, there we are. So I hope you enjoyed that and that you'll have a go yourselves. And please send me your pictures. Rosie, tell Mummy she's got to send me your picture, okay? I want to see it. Excellent, guys. I'm not going to be doing one of these streams tomorrow, but I'll be back again on Monday. So I will see you all then. We'll tweet you and show you later. Thanks, Heather. See you all soon. Enjoy the rest of the day, guys. Bye now.